as we get started here. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Stay in the Know, a youth and community dialogue on vaping, presented by Auburn Prevention Coalition. My name is Seth Farrison. I'm the coordinator of Auburn Prevention Coalition, which is a program of Auburn School District in partnership with King County and with the Washington State Healthcare Authority. Next slide, please, Alex. Okay, so before we get started proper, there are a few housekeeping items that I wanted to cover. First things first, a disclaimer that this webinar is being recorded. So if you choose to turn on your camera, unmute your microphone, type something in the chat at any point during this presentation, that information may be incorporated into the recording. And so please just keep that in mind. On a similar note, we ask that you would take a moment right now to make sure your mic is muted and that you don't unmute yourself during the presentation. Hopefully we will be having time at the end for some questions and answers where you may be able to unmute, but at least during the presentation section, we ask that you remain muted. Also, you can type your questions in the chat box during the presentation, and we have a facilitator who will be eyeing those questions, and there will be an opportunity to read those aloud during the Q&A. So with that all out of the way, we want to start by sharing a little bit of information about Auburn Prevention Coalition, who we are, what we do, and kind of how this all came about. Next slide, please. All right, so Auburn Prevention Coalition was founded in 2016. It's funded through the Community Prevention and Wellness Initiative, which is a grant from the Washington State Healthcare Authority. Our coalition includes stakeholders from education, from the public health sector, from government healthcare. We try to be as broad-reaching into different sectors in our community as possible. And as you can see here, our mission is to reduce, prevent, and eliminate underage drug and alcohol use by engaging, educating, and empowering all members of our multicultural community. So that can involve a lot of different things, including public awareness campaigns, education, things similar to this event that we do to try to spread awareness in the community about substance use related issues. We are involved in life skills training for students in Auburn School District. That's a part of their curriculum. Things like after school programming or other opportunities for positive peer networking. Parenting classes to help parents deal with substance use issues and having those conversations with their children. And then also working in environmental strategies and advocating for policies that will create safer environments here in Auburn. So now for a little bit of information on vaping from a public health perspective. You can go to the next slide, Alex. I'd like to welcome Norilyn de la Pena. In addition to being a community outreach and cessation manager for public health Seattle and King County, Nori is also a certified health education specialist, a certified tobacco treatment specialist, and a valued long-standing member of our coalition. So with that, Nori, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Seth. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today or this evening. We're really looking forward to hearing from our students in the Auburn area. About a year ago was our first shot at getting this community dialogue started. And from that conversation, we heard many times that they wanted to hear more from our young people, our students, and how they're experiencing vaping in the schools and their experience using vaping products. And so we listened to the community, and here we are doing another round of this. And why this is challenging, you can imagine. If you want to just put in the chat why you think vaping has taken off as it has. Why is this youth vaping epidemic still challenging today, and how it started? If you want to just kind of share in the chat what your thoughts are about that. We are definitely seeing continued challenges with youth vaping, particularly in our high schools. We're also hearing middle school and right down to elementary use. So definitely want to address it, want to talk about it. We're hearing from our young people that we really don't, we shouldn't sweep it under the rug. We should talk about it. We should change the culture on campus about it, and talk a little bit more how we can not discipline in the ways that we have been, and providing more support instead. So as you are well aware, nicotine is very highly addictive, and youth lungs don't develop fully until about age 25. And we know that if students and young people are using it at an early age, it triples the chance that they'll use tobacco products or smoking in the future. So we want folks to know that support is available. There are many local now resources for helping people quit. You know, being that we've been in this pandemic for quite some time, it really has been really hard on people's mental health. And so, you know, adding vaping onto this and using substances is just really exacerbating the issues and worsening symptoms. So there is definitely a link with nicotine dependence and addiction and mental health distress. So we definitely want to encourage folks to reach out. We want people to talk openly about it. As it turns out that you know, I don't even have the latest products in front of me right now. I've got, you know, a Juul starter kit. I've got the Sworn drop. There's just so many different products out there that exist. And so we're just trying to keep people informed and what to look for, how to have these conversations with young people, and how to support our educators and organizations that are serving our youth. Much to discuss about that, but I'll leave that to our conversations when the students take over and share on their panel. But yeah, I just hope that you take away some valuable nuggets. We're going to be sharing some resources too at the end. And so without further ado, I will pass on the torch. I believe it's Robert.
Good evening,
Yeah.
everyone.
I mean, I had a whole like introduction for him planned where I was going to gas him up and say a bunch of nice stuff, but you're good to go, Robert. You got it.
I appreciate it. Appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. My name is Robert Powell. I'm one of the 3 prevention intervention specialists through Auburn School District, and our main duties is working with students dealing with alcohol, tobacco, or other drug-related issues. With that being said, we have a special role in the buildings because we're able to have in-depth conversation with youth that students, faculty, admin are not able to have. And we pride ourselves on being confidential with our students. But through the course of conversations, we realized and found out that a lot of our students are going through a lot of issues dealing with vaping. And we've been thankful to have a few students to join us and talk about their vape experience. And I feel like this time we'll let them take over by asking questions about their experience and what do they see is going on in our school district right now. So with that being said, I'm gonna ask some of our students. This is the first and foremost, we thank you for coming today, but why did you guys volunteer to do this conversation or be a part of this conversation? I'll go with the Auburn High School or Auburn Riverside. You can speak.
So I know I have at least one Auburn High student in here. There's 2 currently still trying to get in and set up with Zoom. So hopefully they'll be in here shortly.
And one of mine's messaged me as well to say that she was having some Wi-Fi issues, but I believe she's back on.
Okay. Well, typically, a lot of our students that I'm seeing currently are going through a lot of issues is basically they're self-medicating. So a lot of them going through anxiety, depression, or, you know, the typical things a lot of high school students go through. And what they're doing is they're telling one another that this is a healthy alternative. So it's like the misinformed, guiding the misinformed at times. But a lot of our students are realizing that it's hard to go to certain spots in your schools because now it's become a hot spot for a lot of things. So a lot of our students currently are, the ones that are using typically go to the main spot, which is the bathrooms. So I notice a lot of our students are having constant battles of finding safe bathrooms in a sense to kind of go through at times. But a lot of kids have found out that the accessibility has kind of ramped up. And I just had a vape discussion today with a lot of my students. And it's like, if the age to buy vapes or tobacco products is 21, why is it the accessibility is so prevalent within our schools? And it comes down to the simple fact that we have a lot of older siblings, we have a lot of young parents that are vaping and smoking with their children's. And so they are able to poach off their parents, or they find it from kids around the area. And it's kind of harmful and scary because a lot of the stuff now is being laced. And so one of the harms that could be involved with a lot of our students is the access to fentanyl in some of these vape cartridges. And that's what I'm noticing that is circulating around our school district right now. And a lot of our students are not aware of those dangers. And a lot of it is because a lot of our students are just young. They're spontaneous, they're impulsive. But yeah, if the students choose to unmute, welcome to come in. Thank you guys for showing up. The question was kind of referring back to was, why did you guys choose to volunteer for this conversation?
Hi. Sorry, my Wi-Fi wasn't working, so I got it to work again.
All
But
good.
thank you for having me. I wanted to participate in this because I thought it was a good conversation to have. And I think that it's really cool that you guys are asking students to speak about this, because if the one group of people who knows it the best is the people who are going through it, which is us. So yeah, I think it's really good that you guys are asking these questions from our perspective. It helps a lot.
Thank you. Would you mind sharing your personal vape experience or how vaping has affected you?
Of course. So I started last year, and I started because of the people that I hung out with. Peer pressure came into a big play with me, just to be friends. I wanted new friends. So the friends that I met just so happened to vape and to smoke weed. So I just went along with it. I used to be the type of person who was very anti vaping and smoking, but I didn't realize that the things you'll do to want to feel wanted in a friend group or want to feel like you're part of something, you would do anything really, at least for me. So I smoked weed more than I vaped because personally I didn't like vaping that much, but when a vape was around, I did hit a vape, and that led me to getting suspended from school because I smoked too much, and then the school found out, and I went to school and the school found out, and ever since then I've been sober. And that was last year around this time. It's almost my 1 year. So, and ever since then, I've kind of become more, I've become more concerned for the people around me and for my classmates, not just the friends that I was friends with back then. I've become more concerned for them, even if they're just vaping. It's like you said, vapes are becoming laced now, which is really scary because though you would think that those are not, I guess, as harmful, but in reality, they all are harmful. And so, yeah, I didn't really smoke for that long. I think it lasted for 3 months, but it hit me really hard when I got suspended. So yeah, that's my experience with it.
Thank you for sharing. Would the Riverside student like to answer that question as well? Okay. Um, can I actually ask a follow-up question? I wanted to know, like, so you said you're really concerned about your fellow classmates and students. What raises your major concerns for your students? Is it the accessibility, or is it the rampant usage that you're seeing in the building?
I think their mental health is
Mhm.
what concerns me the most, especially with my friends. They You can just see them like in class, they're so out of it, and you can just see it in their eyes that they're going through it. And it hurts me so much to see them like that. Even people that I don't know, I just like that I see in the bathroom, and you can just tell that they're smoking, or you can just tell that they are using. And it just, I think even if it's not as accessible, they'll always find a way because it's so much more easier to buy now, like through social media. Like people can just buy, like cash app someone and then they can pick it up. It's really scary. And like there are dealers at our school too, and I know people like buy at school. I know that that's been happening for like a while now, but I know that school's like kind of like the outlet for everyone, like you said, to like smoke in the bathroom and to get vapes or pens or whatever. And so I think that because it's so accessible, like it's really hard for them to stop. I mean, it's everywhere you go if you don't have good self-control. So yeah, I think that, and then that plays a big part in their mental health. And like it's hard seeing like people that you love go through that and like slowly decline. And like some people don't really realize until they hit rock bottom. And like I don't want all my friends and like all the people I care about to hit rock bottom. It's just, I think the one thing is like their mental health. For me, it's hard seeing that.
So do you feel that a lot of kids are actually saying that they're coping with certain mental health issues?
Yes. la- when I talk to my friends about it, they say that they usually say it's because like they're depressed and they feel like weed or nicotine is the only thing that can numb them from the feeling, which I understand because I've experienced that as well. I would think that drugs was a good outlet for me to not feel anything, because when I did smoke, I really had no feelings whatsoever. Like I was just out of it as well. Like I didn't really feel anything, which
Mhm.
is not good at all. Like it's better, I feel like feeling sad is better than feeling nothing at all. And so they usually, from what I hear from them, they use it to numb the feeling or to distract themselves from like school. Like they say that it helps them work better in class, some stuff like that, which I know it's not, because like at least for the people that I know, the ones that use it constantly, their grades are not good either. So if and then a lot of them also just use it to have fun, and like they think it's fun for a while, and then once you just keep on using it, it's not so fun anymore.
Mhm.
So yeah.
So I noticed like a lot of kids always kind of say that they're trying it for other various reasons and coping and stuff like that. Do you think a lot of kids was affected by COVID, and that kind of been the uptick in potential usage, or do you feel like um, the most social aspect of being back in high school and being around your peers is the reason why a lot of kids were doing it more?
I think COVID definitely played a part in that. um the pandemic literally like it was bad for everyone, not just teenagers. I mean, like I think everyone went through something, and like I said, mental health like played a really big part in it. And I think that because, at least for me, like being stuck at home, I honestly, I really couldn't tell you what made everyone. I'm pretty sure because the pandemic, like because we were all isolated from everyone, that made everyone's, not everyone, but majority of people's mental health to decline. And that, and the one thing that they started to discover was drugs. nicotine and like weed and everything. And so, and like also I saw in middle school, even before, right before the pandemic happened, actually, vaping started to get more popular, at least in my middle school and like around the Auburn area, because I had never heard of it until like 7th grade. But in 8th grade, I remember in middle school, they started adding like vaping detectors in bathrooms because there was a very small group of kids who did it. And then I think once the pandemic happened, like especially in this area, I saw a really big boost in like the use of vapes. I don't know what really influenced that, but I think a lot of dealers just started selling a lot here and kids started buying it. And the kids here also, like, we use Snapchat a lot, and I remember seeing, still to this day, a lot of people that I had added on Snap, like they just started posting all the vapes and they started selling them for like really cheap. And they're like, buy, like they would influence kids to buy it. And I think social media played a really big part of it too, because we were stuck at home and we were all on social media. Like, and we saw these plugs like posting like these vapes or even weed or anything, honestly. But I saw a lot of vapes, especially like in the beginning of the pandemic. I think it just kind of like, it really just skyrocketed once the pandemic hit, because it started to get bad but right before the pandemic. And then they started posting on social media like people who would sell, and they were everywhere. Like I couldn't escape it. It was everywhere. People were selling everywhere, and it was so easy to buy because it was all online and it's easier access that way.
Wow, I'm sorry to hear that, but that's kind of mind blowing to see the accessibility so easily. So, do you think a lot of your peers or students was able to acquire it? Is it through these vape shops, or was it kind of buying these products online, or
Yeah.
was
I think that also with the vape shops, a lot of people, I saw a lot of people last school year befriend people that were able to buy from vape shops.
Mhm.
So, kids that were 18 or over, or even I've seen kids who have parents that vape and the parents buy vapes for them, because I have a few friends that like their parents are pro vaping or like pro smoking, and their parents will buy for them.
Mhm.
Or of course, like the dealers that they would go to, they were 18 or older, and they would buy from shops and then they would sell it to them or buy for them. And so I think it's also nowadays it's so much more easier to like befriend people who are of the age to buy things from vape shops. And yeah, it's way more easier now. Then they're so much more willing to befriend you because they're going to make money off it.
Wow, wow. Well, we have some Riverside students, and thank you so much for sharing. Um, Riverside students, would you like to join the conversation, kind of talking about how did you get involved, or what is your vape experience? Our Auburn students, sorry.
Oh, and wait, was it for Auburn or Riverside?
Auburn.
Okay. I don't have like a big story, but from what I see, I feel like people are like maybe not feeling comfortable when it comes like to going to the restroom or walking in a restroom or like in school or safety. And I feel like those are the people that try to go to school to do better things in life. And it's like they're not feeling comfortable, so I don't think that's right for them either.
Okay, thank you. So has this really impacted you? What's your thoughts or suggestions on how we can probably change things or assist in this problem?
Well, I feel like teachers I feel like teachers could be more involved in it for us to be able to
So you're saying kind of more visibility from staff during like passing periods and stuff like that? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I feel like teachers don't really engage in like getting to know what's going on with like the students. And I feel like that could help a lot, like students, like teachers being able to understand what they're going through and stuff.
I've got a message here in the chat from an Auburn High student who is not comfortable coming off of mute, but I can read their statement aloud. They said, I'm 17 years old and I stopped vaping and smoking weed last year because I would always get suspended at school. And I was already addicted because when I was in class, I was vaping under my shirt and I would always get caught and get sent to the office. And they would call my parents. I started vaping because I didn't want to be the only one not vaping when I would go inside the restroom. And my other reason I stopped was because I have younger brothers and I didn't want to be a bad example.
Thank you for sharing that. And honestly, through a lot of conversations that I've had with students, it's been a lot of that. We've had either older siblings or younger siblings that are watching each other do these behaviors and they're picking up on it and it's rampant. And that's why we're seeing the influx of younger kids doing it time and time again. You know, as prevention specialists, our main duties is to talk to high school students, but we have found ourselves now going to middle schools and having vape discussions because it has ramped up. And a lot of it is, I think, because of playing out the accessibility. Like the students said, like they were able to just get online and contact A, B, or C and send a cash app. And you have this basically, it's like a DoorDash service to your school or wherever you may be. So I feel like that's a huge issue that's going on in our schools. So I asked you guys then, what can like maybe our coalition, or what do you think outside people need to know about youth and vaping? Like, should we, is there something that we can probably try to implement for you guys to assist? Because at this point, I just see that it's a growing issue, and I'm getting very scared and alarmed of the experiences that I've been shared with.
I think that administration should talk about it more with like the whole school and tell students that they're not alone, because even though everyone knows that over like probably 80% of kids at school do it, they feel like, I feel like not a lot of students at all express how negatively drugs has an effect on them. And I feel like if that's talked about more and kids hear like, oh, okay, so me feeling sad after I smoke, or me like thinking that this isn't okay for me isn't I guess a weird thing, because a lot of kids also just do it to be cool. And like they really need to know that you don't have to smoke to try to be cool, or you don't have to vape to fit in. And I feel like if other students hear that, even from just like other students it's really hard to like go up to other students and tell them that, because people can make fun of you. But I feel like there needs to be more of like a talk with the whole school, not just like individual students, because I feel like if more students hear, it'll influence them and impact them to hopefully reach out and talk to people like you guys, or stop smoking and vaping. So I feel like if maybe administration or something, like even like if the school did like an assembly or something to talk about it, I just feel like the school like doesn't take it really that seriously. And honestly, they don't think about how badly it affects us as teenage, like people think that it's not that big of a deal and we're doing it just to rebel, but there's so much more deeper meaning to it sometimes. That's mostly the case. So I feel like if they talk to the whole school and say that this is a problem, then and we need to fix it, we need to take steps to fix it and help you guys, get better, not necessarily get better, but help you guys walk into a better path so that when you graduate high school, you're not, 30 and still using and you can't even breathe anymore. You know what I mean? So I feel like they need to talk about that and talk about how it could really affect you in the future as an adult.
Thank you. I think that's really important. And as a prevention specialist at the school that I'm currently at, and I'm gonna push for all of us to try to see if we can meet those needs. That's just because I think that more awareness is key. And with a lot of our youth going through these issues of mental health, it needs to be known that there's a straight up correlation between vaping and smoking and mental health. How do you feel about the prevention intervention specialists in your guys' building? Do you think those are helpful? Do you feel like you need more of those people in your building?
I think that the one that we have is great. My prevention specialist, Mr. Dixon, he helps a lot. But because so many people now are starting to find out about it, so many kids are going to him. And I feel like one isn't enough because there's so many kids now, which I'm glad to see that there's a lot of more kids reaching out, or even if it's just because they get in trouble and then they have to talk to him. I feel like there needs, if not another one, like maybe just I honestly, like, to be honest, I feel like one isn't enough, because if we're going to start talking about this in schools, there's probably going to be, once they see one student go up and talk, so many other students are going to want to talk, because that's what I saw last year. I remember I was one of the first people, me and my friend, me and her, we got to spend it together. And when we came back, me and her were literally one of Mr. Dixon's first students to talk to him. And we recommended him to so many people that we knew who needed help. And then after this year, or during this year, just like skyrocketed. So many kids like found out about it and started recommending him and all that. But I feel like one person isn't enough at this point. If everyone's kids are just starting to find out more, which is a good thing, because that means more kids want help. But I feel like there needs to be more outlets, because one person can only do so much, and Mr. Dixon already does a lot for us. So
Thank you. Well, shout out to Mr. Dixon. Auburn students, what are your thoughts and feelings on things that you guys would need or would like to see in your building? Is our Auburn student still there? Okay.
I feel like we need like more security guards. Well, I don't think it would be much, because I feel like people will still do it. But I feel like maybe teachers can be like more involved with students and caring about like how they feel. Not just being there to like teach. Well, I understand that their work, but I feel like she said, I feel like there's always like a backstory to why they do it. It's not just because we want to be cool. Like, I feel like there's always a back reason for that.
So what are you guys' thoughts, I guess, about the consequences if someone gets caught vaping or smoking marijuana?
I think the first thing that they always do is suspend them from school, and I don't think that's really gonna teach anything to them. I feel like it's better to bring someone who they feel comfortable around and have like a talk about how they feel or what's making them do it. Because I feel like the thing that is, oh, well, you're suspended and you come back. Like, they're not gonna stop to take it suspended from school. Like, once it's an addiction, you're gonna want to keep doing it. And I feel like suspension is not gonna be enough for someone to be like, oh well, I'm gonna stop vaping. I feel like they need a talk with someone who they feel comfortable around, and like they should be a little more involved to know why.
Thank you. I feel that is needed too from a lot of students that I spoke with, and also meeting with my TI team. That having that support. Do you guys think maybe having something maybe led by students in your building could be a idea where, because I know a lot of students don't feel comfortable sharing with admin, counselors, or teachers at times, that maybe if they knew they had a support group in the building that they can go to, and then have those students refer them to prevention intervention specialists or people in the building that can support their needs. Do you think that could be an idea?
Our Auburn High student who's typing in the chat said having more administrators, like more people who can check inside the restrooms.
I think that is huge. And I think that's the part where as adults in the building, we get complacent. I think we get focused on our current tasks, and we kind of swipe things under a rug in a sense. So I feel like extra support in the buildings is needed. But as for the question just asked, do you guys think having a support group could be beneficial? And if so, what can that look like?
I feel like that would be for like having a club where like people can be able to go and feel comfortable around other people who have done it. So they feel comfortable enough to like talk about like stuff going on and what made them do it, how are they dealing with it.
So it seems like there needs to be like a survey that goes around, and maybe we can start pinpointing students to the right people in the building. And also maybe a survey can bring more acknowledgement and awareness to administration of saying this completely a possibly need for students that is needed immediately, because obviously we can see the uptick in usage that has gone on over the years. I just saw a recent study from the FDA that 1 in 4 students now is basically, using current users. So typical students or typical classrooms are ranging from 20 to 25 students. So right then and there, you see 1 to 5 students in your classroom is addicted to nicotine or vaping. So that's alarming, right? Back to the Riverside student. Do you think of any ideas of or on ways we can improve as admin versus, I know you said you want maybe more awareness, more like rallies where the whole school, but what's your thoughts too on the consequences? What do you think? Do you think consequences fit the suspensions, or do you have any other suggestions?
I feel like the survey idea was really good. I like what you said about that, like having an outlet for student. I feel like there just needs to be like a direct outlet when you get caught smoking at school or whatever, drug related. I feel like the first thing that they need to do is sit down with you and talk to you, because I remember when I got suspended, like the first thing that they did was they, sat my mom down and like just told her the consequences, and that's it. Like they didn't ask me why I did what I did, or if I was okay. And they automatically, and yes, I do think that it's necessary to suspend a kid, of course, but there's so many other things you could do but suspend. Like I feel like suspension should be like the very last thing. And I'm not saying that what kids are doing aren't bad, because there are kids out there who are doing bad things related to drugs. Like they're not mindful at all. But for the kids who were like me, who struggle with their mental health or who are doing it just to feel cool, or if it was because of peer pressure, I feel like they should sit down with either an administrator who they feel comfortable with, or maybe maybe one of the specialists, and you can sit them down and you can be like, it's okay to open up and, tell me what you've been going through so that we can try to help you stop smoking and get better and try to better yourself with whatever they're struggling with. Because I feel like that's really the problem. They don't sit us down and ask us if we're okay.
Just to follow up, so what if we was able to do that and have this discussion with students, and let's say the student comes back to school the next or the following day or does not get suspension, do you think that'll play an effect on other students? Because when you think that they will believe that there's no consequence for doing it, so it might increase?
I think that as well, because I honestly believe that students will try to find a way to take advantage of that, now that I think about it. So I do think suspension is necessary. And I think actually what would be better is maybe after suspension, like I got suspended for a week. I don't think a week suspension is necessary, maybe like 3 days, not a week. I think a week is pushing it, in my opinion. So actually suspension I think would be okay, because during my suspension I got to think a lot and I reflected a lot. And so I think those days of not going to school are needed to like reflect on what happened to you, and hopefully to make you realize that what you're doing is not okay for your health. And then when you come back to school, you can talk to someone. And that's what happened to me. I started talking to the specialist. So, but I feel like a lot of kids, though, after they get suspended or after they get in trouble, they just immediately start using again or like smoking again. So I just really think that even if we, talk to students about it, they honestly just really need to like handle the usage in the bathroom more. I mean, like you're surrounded by it all the time. You smell it like everywhere, at least once a day. I'll smell like an area and it'll smell like weed or it'll smell like nicotine. And so I just really think they need to take control of the usage of nicotine in bathrooms and in school, and like how easy it is to vape at school.
I think a lot of people may not even know the smells of a vape. What's that smell like?
Um, I like when I go into the bathroom, I mostly smell it in the bathroom. Like it smells like when nicotine is like almost out, it smells kind of burnt in a way. So I smell that, and I also smell like weed, and I smell like wax pen, which is like another form, which a lot of students use those because I think it's like burnt. It's like wax. I don't really know necessarily like what it is, but you can get high from it. So I smell that as well. It just like smells very burnt. Obviously nicotine comes in different flavors. Like if I smell a fruity smell, I'm not just going to think that, oh, it's nicotine. I just mostly smell it like, I mean, like, honestly, when I walk into the bathroom, people are just doing it. So I know that it's nicotine because you can see them literally do it. They don't even try to hide it anymore. Like they're just like outside the stalls doing it. And like there's kids waiting to go use the restroom, and you can see them like they're just like barricading the whole bathroom doing it. Like you can't even use the restroom anymore because there's so many people in there. And then like the air just smells really bad, and and you can just tell, you can just smell, at least for me, like I can just smell it. I just know, like, and I'm like, it's really strong. So
Wow, I'm blown away just by the uptick, I guess, in students going to the bathroom and just be openly kind of doing it now with kind of no fear in a sense of what you're saying. Is there any other questions out there from, everybody here in here discussion? Anything on their mind that they want to kind of bring up or ask the students any questions?
I can throw out a question. So my question to the students is, if the school district had, because we were talking about like punishments, right? And suspend or don't suspend. If there was an option for students to maybe involve themselves in treatment as an alternative to getting a suspension, do you think that, from your experience, that students who maybe get caught vaping or smoking weed, if they had the option of, say, well, you're going to get suspended, but we will actually waive your suspension if you get involved in a cessation program and you stick with it for X number of days, do you think that students would respond positively to that?
I think they would. And that also gave me an idea, like maybe another thing that they could do is maybe community service, because I feel like when they have other things to do and get their mind off smoking and vaping, maybe community service could be like they could get involved with the community, like through the school, and that could help them. It, in a way, could be a source of kind of like an outlet for them. Or maybe I think community service, and that is a really good idea. I think that would help students a lot.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. I also think that even you can take it a step further where you can do a community service at maybe at one of the local middle schools or something like that, um, just so you can become a big brother, big sister to the younger kids that are potentially involved in vaping, and you having discussions with them about the effects that maybe that has caused you or you're currently going through, and that can be a deterrent to them.
One of our Auburn High students typed in the chat, yes, I think it would. I think that when they see that people are there to push them to do better, they try harder. And I also believe that we can be the ones that are there to talk to them and to try to understand them.
And honestly, I think with our generation of students now, I think they respond better to their peers for some reason. So having a person of the same age range and having discussions about this could be forward thinking, as long as it's supported by certain staff. I think that could be a huge asset around the building and in the school. Any other questions out there?
Yeah, I am curious. I know we kind of heard about how the administration might help or how there might be some other programs in the schools. Are there ways that community members might be able to get involved? Ways that community members could be helpful to students or other resources?
That could be a good way to think about, seeing if other community members can volunteer within the school district. Is that what you're kind of asking?
Yeah, or if students see a role for people who are maybe not necessarily teachers or admin, how can we, in the city of Auburn, how can everybody kind of help?
Do you guys care to try to answer that question?
I'm sorry, I didn't really hear the question. If you could repeat it yourself, so sorry.
What she asked was, how can kind of community members help out that are not a part of the school and in some type of way, shape or form?
I feel like a way that could also help is that like I actually have no idea. that's like a great idea. Though. Like they can actually try to help, and I feel like when they see that it's not only teenagers trying to understand them, that can give them like a lot of support as well.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I didn't catch the last part. Could you repeat that?
Also, like them knowing that only teenagers because they can see that not like we're not the only ones who understand that older people help like understand as well. Like, not, it might seem like a movie guy, but like that they can see that they have support from everyone.
Okay. I was also thinking, well, Ashley suggested that, or let you guys know that students, they don't get suspended for, tobacco related issues. So if vaping is a huge issue in our schools and our students are not really getting a major consequence for that, besides maybe a lunch detention or a after school program, what suggestions or ideas or consequences you think that could be adequate for our vaping usage in our students?
Maybe in school suspension, not necessarily like they'll still be able to go to for vaping. I think maybe in school suspension would be good. But I feel like the kids who take advantage of just only getting lunch detentions from vaping, and if they're doing it all the time, I feel like maybe there should be a certain amount of times that, I don't know if this is being put to use at my school, I don't know, but maybe like if they have like strikes or something, like they're like maybe 3 times, and then like after the 3rd time then they get suspended. But yeah.
Yeah, we can definitely try to bring that up to, the district to see if they'll go along with that. But it does seem like a lot of kids are kind of not taking it serious in a sense, because I feel like, or just from my observation in the schools, I think that it's not really mandated. It's mandatory. They want the kids to go to lunch detention, but they're not really enforcing it. Do you feel that that's the same kind of understanding that you guys are getting from your end?
Yeah, I have an Auburn High student here who said the problem I've seen at my school is that when some students get lunch detention, friends will go in with them, and it shouldn't be that way. So that kind of ties into what you were saying.
Okay. And what's our time, Seth?
I was muted. It's 5:28, so we're doing okay on time.
Okay. Yeah, that's my observation. I see that, kids going to detentions, and I guess you got peers coming in there. I see a lot of kids that just skip that entirely, and end up getting a Thursday school at my school, but sometimes that's not even followed through by the students. So I feel like there needs to be some type of compromise between our students and our admin. Any other suggestions by the students? Okay. So with that, I think that kind of might conclude the students part, or is there any more suggestions or sections that anybody has? Otherwise, I'll pass it back to you, Seth or Nori.
Yeah, you can pass it back to me. Yeah, well, thank you, Auburn High and Auburn Riverside students for participating in this. You know, you didn't have to. I remember being a high school student, and pretty much anything after school was over, I didn't want to have to be involved in. I wanted to be home and using my time other ways. And so we do really appreciate you taking the time, the honesty and vulnerability of sharing your experiences. You know, we're not owed that, so we're very thankful that you all wanted to be involved, and it was definitely really helpful to hear your stories. Alex, if you could advance to the next slide, please. Okay, so this is kind of like the other shoe dropping at the end of any of these things, which is that we have a survey we'd like you to fill out. But this is a very short survey. It's 4 questions. The QR code is right there. You can scan it. I believe Alex has, there you go, the direct link that he just dropped in the chat there. So you can click on that link as well instead of the QR code if that's easier. It is really important to us that we get feedback from participants about this, because it was the feedback we got at the end of our last one that told us how valuable the student section of the community dialogue was last year, which was a much smaller percentage of the presentation than it was this time. And so we were able to really highlight that this time around in a way that I think was really beneficial, because we got input from folks who attended. And so it's really valuable to us to get your input so that we can make sure that we're answering the questions that you have about substance use among youth in our community, and that we're be able to be receptive to that feedback. So if the link is in the chat there, so we can go ahead and advance. We have a couple of slides here at the end that are just some resources. Obviously, you know, this is screen sharing, so you can't click on these links, but we're gonna have the PowerPoint available to be sent out after the fact. And so, oh, there you go. Alex is actually very kindly linking some of them in the chat if you want to follow through some of those resources. We don't want to leave this meeting without making sure that however you may be interacting with substance use or with vaping, whether you yourself are trying to quit, or you know somebody, or you just want to learn more, these are some helpful resources that Nori provided for us. Also, I'll use this as an opportunity to plug our monthly coalition meetings. We're always happy to have community members from any organization or from no organization at all to come to our meetings, to hear what's going on in the coalition, to provide input as to what we can do better. Those happen typically on the 3rd Wednesday of the month, although there will not be one for the month of December due to holiday scheduling. But that means that the next one will be the 3rd Wednesday of January coming up. So that is all that I have to share. Does anybody else have any closing thoughts or things that they wanted to get out there into the void before we close the meeting?
I just want to say, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to mention that Brandy put something in the chat, a great idea about community service and students participating in something around that.
Yeah, I mean, would you like to say it aloud if you're looking at it?
If available, maybe community members can offer community service for these students that get caught. I think that would be a way to support.
I love that.
And I'd just like to thank the students again. I appreciate the time, and I know how vulnerable you guys were with this. So I definitely really truly appreciate that. So thank you again.
Yeah, and I mean, thank you everybody who attended just to watch, and hopefully you found it informative, and hopefully it helps you think more about the student perspective and whatever work you may be doing in the community. thank you for attending this community dialogue. I'm gonna go ahead and drop my email address, which is sfarrison@auburn.wednet.edu, into the chat. If you want to follow up with me about anything that you saw in this community dialogue, or for future opportunities to work together on these topics, please reach out. I'm always happy to hear from members of the community. All right, thank you so much and have a nice evening.